Hello everybody, hope you guys are all enjoying your Easter. Today we're going to be looking at your snowstorm, which is going to be happening over areas through the Midwest and Great Lakes, where areas affected by the system could pick up about 6 to 12 inches in addition to what you've already seen from the system. And then areas near the UP of Michigan, northern Wisconsin, and areas that are lake effect prone could see up to about 3 feet of snowfall. Some of the National Weather Service offices are showing. So we're going to be going over all of that, and then we're going to quickly look at some of the severe weather, which I did put a whole video on yesterday, so you can go check that out. But we're briefly going to look at it in what the SPC, or the Storm Prediction Center, is putting out for today for areas into Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, because you do have a moderate risk of severe weather already in place. So we have a very active National Weather Service. Right now we have winter weather advisories in the purples, winter storm warnings in the pinks. That's because of this winter storm, which is again moving through the Midwest and Great Lakes. We have wind advisories actually over much of the eastern half of the United States, pretty much from areas in the Northeast down through the Southwest. We have high wind watches in that kind of bronze shade, and then we have in those darker browns we have some high wind warnings in effect, or those high wind watches in effect over these darker browns. High wind warnings in that lighter brown, in this shading of brown right here for Nebraska, Kansas, and then also for areas along the East Coast, seeing some high wind warnings in effect. We also have some flood watches in effect anywhere in the greens. That's for Tennessee, Arkansas, northern Mississippi, Alabama, and Georgia, as well there for western North Carolina and westernmost Virginia. We also have some freeze warnings in effect for Missouri, Nebraska, Iowa, eastern Kansas, Oklahoma, and also a little bit there for Texas and New Mexico, where the growing season has already started, and you are actually going to see some pretty cool temperatures moving behind this very, very large system. And then we also have some tornado watches in effect for Mississippi, Louisiana, and Arkansas, and we also have some severe thunderstorm warnings and tornado warnings, and then we have some red flag warnings there for southernmost Texas there. Now let's start looking at your Storm Prediction Center real quick, and then we'll start getting into your winter storm. Now it pretty much is the same, except that moderate risk and that enhanced risk actually expanded from yesterday. We have a marginal risk in that green, and that extends pretty much until you hit about Pennsylvania, Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and pretty much along that line. That's when your marginal risk starts to cut off, and then as you get into that slight risk, that's for the Tennessee Valley and the Southeast, as well there for a little bit of the South Central United States. We have an enhanced risk in that orange, and a moderate risk as we get through southern Tennessee, western Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, and also for southern Arkansas and northern Louisiana. So make sure you are paying attention to your local National Weather Service. Make sure you you are near your phone, because you will get a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning alert on your phone if one of those do get issued, or if you have a flood warning in place, for example. So definitely make sure you are close to some sort of device that you can get notified by. If you do have a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning, make sure you do take shelter immediately. Now we have a 15% chance for tornadoes in the reds. You rarely see that. You rarely also see the 10% risk, which is in the yellow, 5% risk in the brown, and a 2% risk in the greens. We have a significant hatched region where you are looking at the potential for EF2 to EF5 tornadoes within that region, and that definitely is something to keep your eye on. I think you could see a couple of those EF2 tornadoes, and definitely a few EF1 or EF0 tornadoes pop up. Here's your wind threat, and you do have a 45% chance of wind damage. You rarely see that as well. You also have a 30% chance of wind damage surrounding that, 15% chance in the yellow, 5% chance in the brown. We have a significant hatched region where you have a probability of seeing wind gusts in excess of 65 knots with some of these lines of thunderstorms that are looking to develop That's really, really high wind speeds. That would be right around 70 to 75 miles per hour or more if you were to convert that to miles per hour. So, definitely a lot of wind damage could be on the way for you in northern Alabama, northern Mississippi, northern Louisiana, southern Arkansas, and southern Tennessee there. And then your hail threat, you have a 5% chance in the brown, 15% chance in the yellow, and a 30% chance there for a little area in the borders between Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas as well. We have a hatched region there through a greater region, and that's where you have the probability of seeing 2-inch diameter hail or greater. So that's definitely something to note. Now, here's your surface analysis map, and this is going to be, we're going to start looking at your winter storm here, and this is going to show you where your low pressure is. We have a low pressure system over central Iowa, and to the north of that, we have temperatures in the 30s, 40s, well, very low 40s, mainly in the 30s and 20s, where you're getting some snowfall to occur throughout the Midwest and the Great Lakes. But to the south, look at these temperatures in the 60s and 70s and 50s as well. So we have some very, very warm temperatures, and we're going to be looking at your simulated radar as well as your wind gusts, because you are going to have some pretty gusty winds with this. And then also, we're going to be looking at your temperatures, because you are going to have some very, very frigid temperatures and some very warm temperatures to the south. You're going to have a very, very thin gradient there. Now, let's start looking at your NAM 3 cam model and what it's producing in terms of snowfall and rainfall. Now, this is the latest NAM 3 cam model. We have snowfall over Nebraska, South Dakota, northern Iowa, and southern Minnesota, and northern Wisconsin. Originally, just a few days ago, this was tracking a lot further to the north, so this has actually dragged further to the south, and a lot of these areas on the models are looking to get around 6 to about 10 inches of snowfall. Now, I don't have a snowfall forecast for this because the system is already ongoing, so it would be a little bit outdated by the time you guys would get this video, especially if you're watching this later than when I uploaded it. So it is dated, so make sure you're looking at your radar, and check your local National Weather Service at weather.gov, because they will update those numbers pretty much every hour. They tend to do about every hour with those snowfall forecasts. And now this would be by this afternoon, and now getting through the evening hours, you're seeing very, very heavy snowfall through southern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and as you get into the UP of Michigan, especially the eastern side of it, there's really some very, very heavy lake effect that looks to go on, and very significant lake effect, and that could lead up to about 2.5 feet of snowfall in some areas. Now, how much of that sticks really is going to depend. You will have some pretty cold temperatures in place, so definitely I think some of it will stick. Just because it is mid-April, that sun angle is really not going to help you if you do want some accumulating snowfall. You also see we have a little bit of ice in between there, so that could pose a little bit of a threat. I know not a lot of you guys are on the roads. If you do have to travel, now be very careful, because you will have some icing issues through central Wisconsin, central Iowa, and then through north central Missouri. This would be by Monday morning, and then you start to see it taper off and move further to the east. And you can kind of see on the right side of your screen, the very right side of your screen, you can kind of see those persistent snow showers through the UP of Michigan. Now, here is your wind gust, because you are gonna be seeing some pretty strong winds throughout this region. And speaking of winds, if you do live pretty much everywhere through the Great Lakes southward and then also eastward from there, pretty much the eastern half of the United States, you are going to be dealing with some very, very strong winds, especially as you get into the Ohio Valley, Northeast, and Mid-Atlantic, and along the eastern seaboard. I do think you will have some wind gusts that are over 50 miles per hour in some regions, especially if you live closer to the coastal areas. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do my video on tomorrow, but potentially that might be what I'm going to talk about, those extreme winds as well as some severe weather for the Carolinas and Virginia. Now, here's your wind speeds, because again, you will have some pretty gusty winds with this. You will have wind gusts of about 17 to 20 knots with this in the areas that are seeing some snowfall, and that would be right around 20 to 25 miles per hour. So nothing crazy, but it is going to reduce visibilities throughout those regions. So definitely make sure that you are staying safe throughout these regions. Now, this would be by tonight and now getting through Monday morning. It starts to really die down, and winds aren't going to be too much of an issue with this storm system. Now, let's start looking at your temperatures, and then we'll look at your snowfall at the end. Your temperature gradient, I just wanted to show you just a couple of frames, because look at this temperature gradient. You have in that lightest blue, that's about around 40 degrees or so, in the middle and upper 30s. And then as you get into the yellows and oranges, that's where you're getting into the 60s and 70s. So if you go probably 10 miles to the west or east along that very thin line there, you could be experiencing a 30 degree temperature drop, kind of just going down the road. So that would definitely be very, very interesting to see. And you have a 30-degree temperature drop. So definitely some very, very crazy weather. And that's also what's helping this severe weather be fueled throughout the southeastern United States. And again, I did make a video on that yesterday, so you can go check that out. And of course, check your local National Weather Service for the latest up-to-date information. Now, here's what the NAM 3cam model is putting out in terms of snowfall. And you're seeing we have about anywhere in those blues 2 to 6 inches, and in the purples and pinks, you're seeing about 6 to 10 inches, and in those lighter pinks, that's about 1.5 feet to about 30 inches or so. And now let's look at your National Weather Service forecast, and again, look at those yellows and oranges, as well as those pinks in the UP of Michigan. That's 1.5 feet to as much as 30 inches, which would be about 2.5 feet. So that's very, very heavy snowfall amounts, but that's mainly with lake effect. If you're just taking what's coming with this storm, probably about 6 to about 9 inches, and of course higher amounts as you get into northern Wisconsin and the UP of Michigan. Now, that is going to wrap up today's video. Please consider liking the video, subscribing, and turning on notifications so you never miss a video when I do upload. Anyways, guys, that was Eli the Little Guy. I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.